So on that note, let's turn to our political panel. Lester Munson, Republican strategist and principal of the international practice at BGR Group, alongside Democratic strategist Jamie Jackson, founder of Vantage Global Media. Welcome to you both. I have to say, this morning I wasn't planning on speaking to you two about Jeffrey Epstein or anything related to him at all. It just hasn't really been in the news. The First Lady today, Lester, made the decision to change that. What do you make of this?
Well, I don't think any of us had this on our bingo card today. It was a bit of a surprise. Unclear to me. It sounds like she may be responding to some accusations against her or her kind of being dragged into this Epstein story by some folks who are speaking in the media. I do think it's inappropriate to say that stuff about the First Lady. She's not really put herself out there as a political actor. And I think if folks are doing that and they can't really back it up with anything, as it appears they can't, they probably shouldn't be doing that. Well,
and we should note that her statement wasn't just about her personally. She actually called for congressional public hearings with victims of Jeffrey Epstein, Jamie. And I wonder your reaction to that. We already heard from Robert Garcia, the ranking member on the Oversight Committee. He says, I agree with her call for a public hearing with the survivors.
Well, first, let me say traditionally, first ladies as well as children have been off limits. However, Michelle Obama did receive a lot of scrutiny. But I support the first lady's efforts to put whatever statement she feels she needs to out there to safeguard her reputation. What I do think is interesting is that Chairman Comer of the House Oversight and Reform Committee has been silent with regard to the First Lady's calls for a public hearing for the survivors. And so I'll be looking to see how he responds to this.
Yeah, I think we all will. Of course, this has been kind of a back burner issue, at least in recent weeks, because of a hot war with Iran, a war that, at least in name, is on pause for now, though we've once again had Kuwait, for example, talking about drone strikes from Iran. Iran says Israel is violating it, Lester, the ceasefire that is because of ongoing attacks in Lebanon. And Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, says we're not stopping our targeting of Hezbollah. Is Israel going to be potentially a disruptor to the potential for peace between the U.S. and Iran?
Well, I think it's an open question whether the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon, it should be part of any agreement between the U.S. and Iran. Iran does not speak for Lebanon. The U.S. does not necessarily speak for Israel. So if Israel and Hezbollah have a conflict, as they do, and Israel feels it needs to do things against this terrorist group, which has been attacking it for years, it seems to me that it's fair game for them to be able to do that. Now, does the prime minister want to collaborate with President Trump on finding a solution to the broader question? That is also a very good question. Now is the time to put that on the table and see where things can go. But this is on Hezbollah at the end of the day. They are not a nation state. They are not part of the Lebanese government. They have been targeting Israel with missile attacks against civilians for a very long time. It's entirely within reason for Israel to be striking back.
Well, and this whole notion of Lebanon not being part of the ceasefire agreement, to the point you were making, Lester, we heard that from Vice President J.D. Vance yesterday while he was leaving Hungary before he heads to Islamabad for ceasefire negotiations. Listen.
I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't. We never made that promise. We never indicated that was going to be the case. What we said is that the ceasefire would be focused on Iran, and the ceasefire would be focused on America's allies, both Israel and the Gulf Arab states. If they break their end of the bargain, then they're going to see some serious consequences.
Of course, we might expect to hear a lot more from J.D. Vance about this as he's leading the delegation, as I mentioned, to Islamabad for these conversations. What do you make of the decision for him to be the point person on this, knowing that he historically has been an isolationist, an anti-interventionist in the Middle East specifically? Does that actually potentially make him the best possible negotiator for this administration?
Well, first, let me say that the vice president's remarks that there was a misunderstanding with regard to whether or not Lebanon was included in the fragile ceasefire, I think that's a grave misunderstatement. A misunderstanding is someone thinking that a meeting was at 11, but it was actually at noon. And so hopefully there's more of a meeting of the minds for these upcoming talks on Saturday in Islamabad, Pakistan, because I think the seriousness with regard to the conflict between Israel and Lebanon needs to be really taken into consideration in order for things to move forward. And with regard to your first question about why J.D. Vance, if you ask me, this is to set him up for 2028 and to show that he can step in and be a voice in the foreign policy space. So that's my prediction.
Well, weigh in on this as well, Lester. If you're the Iranians and J.D. Vance is the person on the other side of the table for you, is that actually an outcome you want, because you know that he was one of the more skeptical voices about launching this war in the first place.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. The vice president has been in an interesting spot on this war with Iran, where he's saying he supports what the president does, even if his initial recommendation was not so enthusiastic about whether this was a good idea. It does appear, at least from the conversations I've had with folks in the region, that it's possible the Iranians place a little more trust in him. So to the extent that's an issue here, maybe it does have a different impact on the negotiations. Plus, he's the vice president of the United States of America. That's a very important job at the end of the day. The next step up is the president himself. So I think it sends a strong signal that President Trump is indeed very serious about these negotiations. I think we're all hoping for the best, but there's a lot of challenges out there that they're going to be facing over the next few days.
Well, and on the idea of strong signals, I want to talk about the signals the Democratic Party may be trying to send. We saw a group of House lawmakers attending the pro forma session today, even though Congress is technically on recess, to try to force a vote via unanimous consent on a war powers resolution. The member that was acting as speaker for the day in the pro forma session wouldn't even allow that to happen, gavelled him out until next week. But as the minority leader in the Senate as well, Chuck Schumer, also said he wants to pursue a war powers resolution effort next week. What is the point of doing this exercise now when there are active negotiations taking place to end the war?
Well, I think that we can see, given the president's remarks on social media, even just a few minutes ago, that the ceasefire is fragile and that any hope in a permanent ceasefire, there still needs to be a demonstration of some real good faith efforts for negotiation. So I think Democrats are doing what they need to do to show the American people that they do not support this unauthorized war of choice and that they're going to do everything in their power to ensure that there are checks on this administration.
Well, and of course, it's not just Democrats who have expressed displeasure, but even some on the right, Lester, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Alex Jones are among the voices who are.
I'm not sure they're on the right anymore. I don't know where they are politically. I don't know what they're doing. It is a mystery to me. They're wandering around in the wilderness. I will say this about the war powers resolution votes. I don't understand why the Democrats keep doing this. This is like when Republicans voted every other day to repeal Obamacare, knowing it would go nowhere. It was the same vote over and over again. They did it like 40 times. Democrats going back to the well on this, I think, is a mistake. It shows that Congress actually supports what President Trump is doing. When Congress votes down a resolution of disapproval, that is an indirect way of saying we actually support the war. I don't know why they keep doing this. I think it's a mistake.
Speaking of going back to the well in our final minute, Jamie, you now have open entertainment on Democratic leadership side of talk of the 25th Amendment or another impeachment effort over the president's conduct and rhetoric around Iran. Have we not learned a lesson about those efforts in the past?
Well, I think when you have rhetoric from the president about ending civilizations on social media, there's some real serious concerns. And so Democrats are, again, employing all tools that they have in the toolkit to rein in this administration and to hold the president accountable.
All right, we'll leave it there. Jamie Jackson, Lester Munson, our political panel this evening. Thank you so much. And some news I do want to bring you just